Hey guys, and welcome back to UKDiver. If it's your first time here, then just welcome. My name's Andy, I'm a BSAC advanced diver, open water instructor, technical diver, blah de blah de blah de blah, and today I'm here to talk to you about the 3 types of insurance as a UK scuba diver you need to know about. So the reason for this video is twofold, guys. Firstly, a couple of other scuba tubers have been talking about their experiences with scuba diver type insurance. So Lyle from Everything Scuba has thankfully survived his heart attack and he's absolutely fine that he had while on a scuba trip. And James from Divers Ready recently got bent and again relied on medical assistance through his dive insurer. I will leave links to both of their videos down below if you want to go check those out. However, both of those guys are based over the pond and their experience will be vastly different to your experience as a UK diver, and the insurance they relied on you might not need to buy. So I want to give it you from the UK's perspective on whether it's worthwhile buying that type of insurance or not. So secondly, guys, I've been coming across some club politics. Now, if you've been following me for any length of time, you will know that recently my club voted to get rid of its rib and buy a compressor instead. Now, that decision has not been universally welcomed, and those that are not happy with it have been doing the usual and lobbing in the odd awkward grenade to try and make things more difficult for us getting the compressor set up. And one of those little grenades that they threw is the question that, oh, you do know we'll need public liability insurance to do this and that'll be vastly expensive, which is total utter bullshit, and I will explain to you why that is as we go through these insurance bits as well. So again, I thought if you're a BSAC member, because these guys are long-term BSAC members, okay, lifers, and the fact that they didn't know this and I had to school their ass on it was a bit of a surprise. So I want to make sure that you know what you're paying for as well. And make sure you watch to the end of the video, guys, because I'm going to give you a golden little nugget that will save you thousands of pounds and potentially hours and hours and hours of stress. So make sure you watch to the end of the video because you're not going to want to miss that. So the first type of insurance we can talk about is personal cover, okay, and this cover, as the name suggests, covers you personally. It usually covers things like evacuation costs. Maybe if they've incurred costs, doing search and rescue, it'll pay for those. So your evacuation costs to hospital. When you get to hospital, it will cover the cost of any emergency treatment, specialist treatments such as like recompression treatment, treatment that normal people wouldn't get kind of thing. It will cover those costs as well. It may also cover repatriation costs when you've done with your treatment. If you are abroad and you need to get back home, it will cover all that, and there may be some level of ongoing medical treatment as well, although it is normally limited by both time and cost. It's this type of insurance that both James and Lyle relied on when they had their incidents. Realistically, the only company that anybody would recommend is Dan, which is the Divers Alert Network. And again, I will leave a link down to their website so you can check out their policies. Now, before you go dashing off and buying a policy as a UK diver, you need to ask yourself, is this cover required? And the frank answer is, if you're a UK citizen living and diving in the UK, the answer is no, you don't need this policy. For the simple reason is we already pay for that in the form of the emergency services and the NHS. So if you have an incident, you will be rescued by the RNLI or the Coast Guard, you'll be transported by the ambulance service, and you'll be treated short-term, long-term and specialist treatment will be covered free at the point of delivery by the NHS. So there is no point having this cover unless you're going on holiday. So for us, that's when we need it in the UK, when we travel to these countries like the US and like most countries in the world actually that do not have the NHS or any other type of universal healthcare, because there, if you have an incident there and you need treatment there, you're going to have to pay for it. So the best way to think about this is it's like holiday insurance, okay? That's when, as a UK diver, that's when we need this kind of personal cover. So, do you need to buy an annual cover? No, you don't have to buy it. Most dive centres will have the ability to sell you and will often insist that you have this personalised cover, and it will be Dan cover that they are trying to sell you. And you can pay for it by the day, and it's normally like between €3 and €5 a day. So it is absolutely 100% worth it. Dan has built up a brilliant reputation within the diving community for moving heaven and earth to get you where you need to be in the event if you've had a diving or medical emergency that is covered under their policies. Most of their policies are unlimited. Okay, so all apart from the basic one. I think the very, very basic one has some limits, but if you go for like a silver package, there is unlimited. So unlimited transportation costs, unlimited medical care, unlimited specialty care, and unlimited repatriation costs. So there is no limits, and they are renowned for not trying to wheedle out of it, or you pay it first and then we'll get it back. None of that bullshit that you normally get with any other insurance. Dan, sort you out first, ask the questions later. Okay, if you're getting any type of personal dive cover, the only people anybody with any sense would recommend is Dan. So if you need that type of cover, that's who you want to check out. So just before we move on to the second type of insurance, one thing I would like to say, I did mention when you're in the UK, you'll get rescued by the RNLI. Now, the RNLI is not a government funded body, it's a charity. So if you do think that you should be paying a few quid, not in insurance, but in other ways to make sure that should you need any help, there is help available, I would highly recommend that you give the RNLI a donation and even think about becoming a member. I'm sure they would very much appreciate it. If it's not the RNLI and you've got a local independent lifeboat near you, like we use in St Ab, and they've got their own independent lifeboat, again, a donation would be very well received. I will leave links to both the RNLI and the St Ab's independent lifeboat down below, should you be feeling generous. Okay, the second type of policy you need to be thinking about as a UK diver, and the one I would say that every diver, no matter where you are in the world, should have, is third-party liability insurance. Okay, now you might be thinking, well, Andy, but why should I worry about that? That doesn't cover me. Yeah, it doesn't. So the name third party means it's not really to cover you. Okay, where you get the protection of it from is it protects you financially if you do something daft and hurt somebody else or damage somebody else's property. Okay, it covers you for that. That's what it covers you for. So it's not really about protecting you, but if we think of that in a more positive light, what is it really about? What's really third-party liability? It's about making sure that your buddy is looked after should the worst happen, that your buddy's family is looked after should the worst happen. Okay, if you cause your buddy, for some reason they have to rescue you because you've not had your regs serviced and they've exploded underwater, and they're the one that ends up in the wheelchair, it makes sure that their life is going to be as comfortable as possible, because the third party liability insurances, unlike the personal dive cover, have vast multi-million pound limits. Should the worst happen and you put your buddy in a wheelchair, his loss of earnings, the loss of job, the adaptations they're going to have to the house, to the car, and to every other aspect of the life, potentially for the rest of their life, is going to be covered. So for me, it's not about too much about protecting yourself. It's about having that bit of respect and making sure that should the worst happen, okay, your buddy and their family is going to be looked after, and that for me is really important. And this kind of insurance applies irrespective. It's not always about the worst case scenario. A recent example I can give you not too long ago, where some guy diving twin sets hadn't quite secured his twin set onto the boat railings properly, and basically, the boat hit a wave, off come the twin set head first, and both the pillar valves went straight through the gel coat, straight through the deck, and I can tell you the skipper was not very happy. Now, that's a simple little thing, it's not really a big deal, but it's a couple of grand to fix. And you need to ask yourself, do you want to be paying that? Or do you want to say, actually, here's my insurance details, they'll sort you out. The good thing about this kind of cover, guys, is most of you already have it. As I've already alluded to at the beginning of the video, if you're a BSAC member, you already have third-party liability insurance. It's what part of your BSAC membership fees goes to pay for. And not only do you have third-party liability insurance, you also have public liability insurance and product liability insurance as well. And not just a little bit, you get 10 million quid's worth of each, which means that your buddies and your other dive colleagues and the skipper and that are all covered should you do anything daft. And the reason you get all these different types of cover with BSAC is because the BSAC insurance is not just focused on about what happens on the dive, but it also covers you for any dive related activity or any dive club related activity. So that includes running a compressor, for instance. You've got 10 million pounds worth of public liability. So those grenade throwers can go and do one because you've already got the policy, you dickheads. How do you not know this is what you're paying for? I don't understand. But anyway, moving along. Product liability. So that's if you're doing fills, mixing nitrox kind of thing. If you make a mistake with that and hurt somebody, it doesn't matter. You're covered. They're going to be okay. All right. So it's really important. Now, if we have a look here, this is sort of right on the front page of the BSAC website under the safety bit where you look under insurance. There is a vast list, and it also says at the top, look, non-exhaustive list. So this is non-exhaustive, but that shows you the type of things you're covered for, which is pretty vast and extensive already. And it means if something goes wrong, you do something daft, because we're all human, and someone gets hurt or someone's stuff gets broken, it doesn't matter. They're covered. You can claim. It's okay. So what if you're not BSAC? What if you're not doing that? Well, fortunately for you, this type of cover is really, really cheap. On your screen now is the Dive Master website, and as you can see, you can get this cover for less than 30 quid a year. Doesn't quite give you the same protections as the BSAC, as it is only related to your actual diving activity, and the limits are substantially less at only 2 million quid. But again, £2 million is likely to go a long, long way to making somebody's life a lot better should the worst happen. And frankly, for me, if you're a diver that can't be bothered to pay £30, firstly, make sure you're financially protected in the event of a claim, because if you're not, I'm going to take your car, I'm going to take your house, I'm going to take your pension, I'm going to take every penny I can get out of you if you do something daft and hurt me. So you need that insurance to protect you. But realistically, if you don't want to spend that to make sure that should you do something to me, that I'm looked after, 30 quid, mate, we can't be friends. Go find yourself another channel, go find yourself another dive buddy, because I'm not interested. Okay, it's less than 30 quid a year. It's a no-brainer. Because of that, a lot of dive clubs now, and certainly most BSAC clubs, will insist, if you're going on their trips, that you have third-party insurance. So you will either have a valid BSAC membership or be able to show and produce a third-party insurance policy, such as the Dive Master, before they will allow you on their trip. And if you ask me, that's bloody good practice. Well, that's it, guys. There's the first two policies. It's took me a lot of work to research this, and I would appreciate it if you appreciate it by giving that like button a little tappy tap and just letting me know if this content's been good for you. Okay guys, so moving on to the third type of insurance, and that is obviously insurance about your kit. Now, what I'm talking about here is not really a discrete type of insurance. Most of your kit is probably perfectly adequately covered on your house insurance, under your contents insurance, but there are a few things that you need to be aware of. Firstly, most house insurance policy have a single item limit, and it's normally around the £1,000 mark. And what that means is if something happens to any item that's more than £1,000, it's not covered. So to make sure it's covered, you need to list it specifically when you set up your policy. So if you think about it, there's quite a few things now in UK scuba diving, unfortunately, that can cost way more than £1,000. So that shiny new Atlantic Otter dry suit that you've just bought for 1,800 quid won't be covered. That new Shearwater Perdix, nice snazzy thing that you just bought for 1,300 quid as well, won't be covered. So make sure when you've got these things, or you're renewing your policy, you do mention on the policy that you do have them, give them the quote, and make sure that they're covered. The other thing that you need to check with your contents insurer is how covered are you when you're away from home? And this varies quite a lot, I've found. So when I do my home insurance, I don't just go on Compare the Meerkat and pick the cheapest one. I actually do give them a call, and I'll run them through certain scenarios. So if my kit's in the back of the car gets broken into and half of it gets nicked, who covers that? What happens if I lose it when I'm diving? If I let go of my camera and it just disappears, is that covered? Because you'd be surprised, some will actually cover it. Most of them won't cover breakages and things like that while you're using it, but if it breaks when you're not using it, say you roast it in the car or something like that, they may well cover it. So make sure that you know what you're covered for when you're using it away from the house. Now you do have to be careful with this, guys, because again, there can be limitations, okay? And one of the biggest ones I've heard of is trying to make sure you're avoiding double cover, because obviously, if somebody breaks into your car and takes stuff, that's probably going to be covered under your house insurance, but it's also probably going to be covered under your car insurance. Now, try and make sure when you're you're organising the insurance landscape that you haven't got dual cover on both things, that either one will cover the full value. Because what you get if you get double cover is car insurance will say it's house insurance problem, house insurance will say it's car insurance problem. They'll argue about it for the next 9 months and you don't get paid out. So make sure one or the other covers it. Also make sure you're sticking to any other restrictions as well. So like, for example, in the car, it is quite common to have a restriction on the policy that if you have something stolen, it must have been covered up. So make sure if there are any restrictions or exclusions or things you have to do to make sure that your policy is covering you, you do them and you stick with it. So here we are guys, the top tip, the bit you've been waiting for. I had my shed broken into a couple of years ago, and I learned the hard way that you need to take precautions prior to having to do an insurance claim, okay? And my top tip is go out now, right? Well, wait till the end of this video, okay? Do me a favor, wait till the end of the video. But as soon as this video's done, go line all your kit up, every O-ring pick, every valve, everything you own, and take a photo of it, okay? Take that batch of photos and put it in your Google Drive, put it in your Apple Drive, and forget about it, okay? And then every time the Scuba Fairy brings you a nice new bit of shiny kit, or someone who loves you buys you some more scuba kit, you should go, ah, that's nice. And then take a photo and add it to there. And the reason you need to take photos is because if you do an insurance claim, the first thing they're going to ask you is to prove that you owned it, which I guess is kind of fair enough from their point of view, isn't it? And to do that, the first thing they're going to say is, have you got receipts? No, I haven't got receipts, because a lot of my kit's been bought second-hand, and when it's bought second-hand, you don't get receipts, do you? So how do you prove you owned it? Well, they will accept photos, okay? They will accept the photos that you've had it. So I had to go trawling back through videos, through a lot of my YouTube footage to say, look, there's the stage that I had then, there's that, and all the other stuff. But what was more difficult was it was the non-diving knickknacks that I had, you know, the tools and this that I've been building up over my 29 years on this planet. You know, the stuff that you just don't think, you know, screwdriver set, socket set, that kind of stuff, you know, it all went, and I had a real nightmare getting it back. And if you can't prove that you owned it, they will resist paying you out on it, okay? They don't like giving the money back. So that's it, guys. The only other thing I have to say is make sure, please, read your insurance policy, understand what you're buying, understand what it covers you for, understand what it doesn't cover you for, and understand the restrictions that are in place to make sure that you abide by them. Because again, insurance companies are fantastic at taking the money off you when it comes time to paying. They are not so keen in paying out when it comes to keep up their end of the bargain, and they will try and wiggle out of it as much as they possibly can. So do not give them that excuse. So that's it. If you found this video useful, then please again do hit that like button for me. That's great. Any questions, leave them down in the comments box below and I will get back to you. But other than that, I will see you on the next one. Now what are you doing here? I told you, go and get them photos now.